Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Kyle Wright. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Aaron. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Why don't you just start us off by telling me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with autism in July of last year, 2024. Grew up always knowing something was different. My parents tried to have me evaluated in the early 2000s when I was about 11 or 12 years old. Unfortunately, at that point, I was already masking too well
Hmm.
for them to really give me a formal diagnosis. I was picked on a lot in school because I was different and all of that. And honestly, it wasn't until I got all the way through college, and I struggled with college. I almost dropped out a couple of times just because I struggled with it. But it wasn't until COVID happened that I realized that I needed to do something. I needed to figure out what was wrong and get a formal diagnosis. Because we all remember that Friday in March of 2020 when everything was just chugging along like normal, and then all of a sudden your boss walks into the conference room and says, take your laptop home, you're working from home for the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
And 2 weeks turned into 3 years. So
Hmm.
um, I struggled with that every minute of that, working from home, because my entire routine, all of my structure, everything that
Hmm.
I knew was instantly taken away from me. And I was looking at all my coworkers that were having parties. I get to work from home. I never had to go back to the office ever again. And
Right.
I'm over here sitting in the corner like, what's wrong with me? I hate this. What are we going to do? And then so basically, I spent the next 3 years just researching and discovering myself, and ultimately decided that I had autism and got my formal diagnosis.
Yeah. You do bring up a good point though, like how I don't know. Sometimes my brain goes like if everybody wants to work from home, but that's a great that you shared that part. That it's not for everybody. Everybody needs certain things to be working their best they can. So it's a very important thing to remember that one size doesn't fit all. So that's a good point.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me, really, it wasn't so much the working from home as much as it was the abrupt change in routine,
Right.
as an autistic individual. Because the job that I have now, my full-time job, I work in IT. I actually have a hybrid, so I work from
Okay.
home 2 days a week, and then I'm in the office 3 days.
Okay.
So it works really well now that I'm used to it.
Right. Yeah. No, that is for sure. That makes a great point. What is your definition of inclusion?
Yeah, so my definition of inclusion is that someone shouldn't have to change who they are in order to belong. Especially as an autistic adult, I've experienced spaces in my life where I felt like I had to mask or tone down who I was in order to fit in,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to working in corporate America. I have a corporate America job. There's certain expectations of you can't do certain things certain ways.
Hmm.
Um, Inclusion for me really means that I can fully show up, whether I'm stimming, needing a break, or communicating in my own ways and still be accepted. It's not just about letting people into the room as much as it is designing the room so that everyone
Right.
actually feels like they matter there.
Yeah. That's a great definition. Can you maybe give an example or two of like stuff you've come across in corporate America where it hasn't been very friendly to you?
Yeah, so corporate America, it's not very structured, not very routine. Like you might get a message from your boss at 4:30 saying, "Hey, I need to have a meeting with you before you leave for the day," or putting you in situations where like you need to give this presentation to somebody. a lot of times they don't give you the time to process it's such a fast-paced,
Right.
fast-moving environment. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you been able to find in your current position, like they're more um, helpful with that as far as like giving you a little time to process things you need to do, or
yeah, so my current job, they are super big on inclusion, super big
awesome.
on making sure that people have the resources they need in order to do their jobs. And through working with my manager, I've been able to like have some different workplace accommodations put
Sure.
into place that can better, assist me with my autism and doing my job. Um, and really, that's the important thing is just having an employer that's willing to meet you in the middle and say, hey, I see that you have
Right.
struggles. What can we do to make this better?
Right. Did you try to seek out a company that you thought would be more accommodating, or did you just kind of fall in your lap, or how did that part work for you?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, my old job was very toxic. I
Okay.
did never really fit in. I had it was a very conservative, old style thinking company, and they just did not really have inclusion at their heart.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I always struggled to thrive there. I worked there for about 7 years, and I actually started working a part-time job while I was still working that job full-time in retail, and really enjoyed the company that I was working for in retail so much to the point that when the opportunity arose, I actually moved up into the corporate
Oh,
space
nice.
within that company because of how how much they stress inclusion and allowing people to be welcome.
Yeah, that's awesome. In that company, do they like straight up say we value inclusion, or you can just tell by how they treat people, or both?
It's a little bit of both, yeah.
Okay.
So they're very big on, um, you know, talking with people, working through with people, especially when I worked in retail.
Sure.
A lot of companies that I've worked for in the past, especially in retail, they have this mentality of the customer's always right.
Hmm.
And thankfully, the company that I worked for, that was not the case. They're not afraid to tell you to kick rocks.
Right.
If you're being an unreasonable person trying to get a discount just for the sake of getting a
Hmm.
discount or whatever the excuse may be.
Yeah.
They make you feel like you're a part of the family.
Yeah. That's awesome. I did a little research before we started talking today. What do you want to talk a little bit about your Rubik's cube art stuff you got going on and how you got into that?
Yeah, so I'll start talking about that. So yeah, I was diagnosed with autism in July of 2024. And at the time, I was a video game streamer
Okay.
and I was streaming on Twitch, doing that pretty consistently. But unfortunately, for anybody that's ever done video game streaming, it's very exhausting. Always having to be on, always having to
Right.
read the chat, interact with people, and really it just wasn't for me. And I started talking to my therapist, and that was when she recommended, hey Kyle, I think you need to find a new outlet. I think you
Right.
need to find something that is a little bit more structured, something that you have a little bit more control over. And so that was when I told her, I was like, well, I saw on TikTok there's this guy over in Europe that makes these massive mosaics out of Rubik's cubes,
Hmm.
and I think it would be really cool to try that. And so she encouraged me to do that. I went home that day, bought 100 cubes, and at this point, I have over 3,000.
Oh,
Just started building cubes and building up a following on YouTube. In the last 8 or 9 months, I just reached over about 30,000 subscribers
wow.
on YouTube.
Awesome.
And so it's been really good for me, for my routine, and for my needs as an autistic individual that I've decided that I want to start sharing it in the world of therapy so
Okay.
that other autistic individuals can benefit from Rubik's Cube art.
That's so. Can you? I mean, I've never been able to actually solve a Rubik's cube. Can you actually solve one?
I can. The fastest I've ever solved a Rubik's cube was 11 seconds, but
11 seconds. Holy
that was
cow.
about 14 years ago when
Okay.
I was like right out of high school. Recently, my average is about 50 seconds, so much slower, but still faster than majority of the population.
I mean, I think I've tried maybe once or twice, and I just don't have the patience, and yeah, my brain doesn't work that way apparently, so I'm not. Yeah, that's not me.
Yeah, for me, as an autistic adult, um, I love patterns.
Yep.
You know, patterns, algorithms. If you give me anything like that, and I will just fall in love. Actually, for Father's Day, which happened just a couple of days ago,
Yep.
my wife got me a different type of Rubik's cube, and I sat there for like 2 hours trying to figure it out, and I
Right.
got it.
Yeah.
But it's just so cool to be able to have something that you enjoy and that still brings you joy this many years later.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you want to explain a little bit about what you mentioned about like how to bring that into therapy and help people, or how that your vision is for that?
Yeah, so we're working on different ways to incorporate therapy goals in using Rubik's cubes. So we
Okay.
make 36 cube mini mosaics
Okay.
that different clients can make in therapy, but
Oh.
we kind of have a way of scaffolding it in a way that we start the clients with 2 or 3 Rubik's cubes, kind of get them used to rotating and
Hmm.
getting the colors where they need to be, and we kind of scale that up as their desire to dive further into it grows. And that's really allowing us opportunities to introduce these individuals to Rubik's cubes and showing them that routine and structure that they desperately crave.
So like, let's say I want to get into it. Like, what's like the entry level cost to like buy the necessary cubes and stuff for to do it?
Yeah, so the 36 cube set retails for about $50 on
Oh wow.
Amazon.
Okay.
So it's not super expensive.
Sure.
If people, I mean, obviously it can become an expensive hobby
Yep.
when people want to do much bigger pieces. But I also provide a free guide that I'll share with you at the end for anybody
Sure.
that wants to try Rubik's Cube art for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot lower than I thought you were gonna say, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, a lot
That's
of
good.
people, well, like, the 100 cube set that I got, it's $120. So that's a little bit of a steeper cost. But when you think about nowadays, these
Yeah.
kids are buying $70 video
Right.
games. You can get a lot more out of Rubik's cubes
Yep.
if you reuse them time and time again
Yeah.
than you're going to get out of a game that you can only play for 40 hours.
Yep. Well, I mean, 7 years ago I started working at a residential treatment facility for kids. So there was kids there from like 5 to 18, and I worked on the oldest boys' dorm, and they were all playing Magic the Gathering. So a bunch of us started playing that to play with them. So I mean, I've spent more than $120 on one card to play Magic the Gathering. So
Yeah, fair enough. I used to collect Pokemon cards, so I
okay. Yep.
understand the elusiveness of
Yep.
gathering cards.
Yeah, or you buy a super expensive one and then they ban it in all the formats, and you're like, well, that just became actually a really cheap piece of cardboard when it was before, but now it really is a cheap piece of cardboard. So.
Exactly. It's a piece of cardboard with some ink on it.
Yep. But I mean, I still have my stuff, and I still play paper Magic once in a while, but I play Magic Gathering Arena on my phone a lot. Just to
Oh,
it's way quicker, and all the triggers are go off for you on there, so you don't have to like try to remember all this stuff. So
yeah, I
it's
like the
easier.
Pokemon trading card game because
Yeah.
it's kind of the same way. You don't have to remember all the little rules. It kind of just does it for you.
Yeah, because the some of the decks get complicated, and you're sitting there and you're like you're missing so much stuff because you can't. There's just way too many things to remember. This triggers, it stacks, and it's like that's too much. I need something that does it for me.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, that's cool. So are these like regular size Rubik's cubes or what?
So the
Are
ones
these?
that I use are actually mini Rubik's cubes.
Oh, okay.
So they're about 1 inch in diameter. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
have
So
any
it's
up
fun.
here with me. I usually have a little picture that has one of my arts on the
Okay.
background back here. But yeah, I use mini cubes, but
Oh, okay.
you can also use full size cubes as well. It just
Be a
becomes
lot
more
bigger.
expensive if you do that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool. So have you sold like some of your art, or have you gone to like fairs and stuff, or what are you doing with that
I don't
part of
need
it?
anything. What? Oh, I was gonna bring the mini Rubik's cube. The can ones. It's in the tub downstairs. Sorry, my wife is
Okay.
interrupting me to
That's all good.
bring some of the cubes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all
She's
good.
gonna go get some of the cubes so that I
Okay.
can show you guys
There you go.
kind of what that looks like for those that are on the live stream. But yeah, I want to move into using full size cubes, but obviously that's more expensive
Right.
and is a much bigger investment to get into.
I mean, plus it's a lot bigger. I mean, it's gonna be a lot bigger space you're gonna need probably
Right,
too.
right.
So.
Yeah, a lot of the guys that I watch on TikTok that they make these 500 or 600 cube mosaics out of cubes. I mean, it's
Oh my gosh.
easily 6, 7 feet tall. I
That's
mean, it's taller than them most of the time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is my
hello.
wife. So
Hi.
yeah, this is one of our mini cube mosaics. So
Okay.
it has a little island with the waves, but
Sure.
in here you can just pull out the cubes, and they're
Okay.
just little miniature Rubik's cubes, which are a lot smaller than the average size ones. To kind of give you a size comparison,
Oh.
there's a mini
Okay.
cube next
Right.
to a full size.
Sure.
So
So how many mini ones are in that
yeah,
picture?
so this smaller one has 36 cubes.
Okay.
So this is actually the set that we use in the therapy setting
Okay.
with all of the kids. It is really easy. You know, it has its own little storage container.
Sure.
So everything is kind of
Right.
compact. You can easily store it, but then the kids like
Hmm.
to be able to build things. So
That's cool. So how do you like figure out what each cube needs to have showing to make that picture? Do you come with a picture first, or you just kind of how do you do that? What's the process in that?
So for these smaller ones, my wife actually designs all of them for
Okay.
me. She's very creative. For some of the bigger ones, there's websites online where you can take photos
Oh,
and
okay.
you basically import a photo and you manipulate it with the different Rubik's Cubes colors, adjusting the like contrast and saturation
Sure.
so that you get that right balance. Because in Rubik's Cube art, one of the most important things is lighting and
Okay.
the shading, because you have to have enough variety in lighting in order for the whole spectrum of colors to be used.
Sure.
So I've tried to do images where it's too bright or too dark and it just doesn't work. It looks like a big blob of blue, big blob of white, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay. Um, Also the same thing goes for like busy scenes. So like I couldn't take a picture of a forest with
Right.
100 trees. The detail is there's just too much detail
Right.
for it to be, Rubik's cube art. And so it's like you gotta have to think in that mindset of okay, I gotta work with smaller things.
Sure. Yeah. Or for something like the forest, would you need to do like a really large piece so you get way more cubes and way more contrast and stuff in it? Would
Yeah,
that
you
work?
can. Yeah,
But that would just be
if
more.
you make it big enough, because
Oh,
I
you
have
can.
done. Yeah, because you like some of those pictures where you see like 8 or 9 trees kind of all back to back, side to
Yeah.
side, and um, you still kind of have the struggle of allowing that depth so
Sure.
that you can tell one tree from the other.
Yeah.
Even when you start blowing it up, like it's gonna start looking more and more like individual trees,
Yeah.
but you still kind of have that trouble of okay, that tree and that tree are the same color green,
Yeah.
and so you can't You
Yeah.
can't differentiate very well.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's very interesting. That's how you just randomly came across it on TikTok. Is that what you said? You saw somebody do it, and then you're like, "Hey, let's try this." That's interesting.
Yeah, so like I said, I've been doing Rubik's cubes for like
Yeah.
15 years
Sure.
and have always just kind of had an affinity for them, really
Yeah.
enjoyed them. And one of the guys that showed up on my TikTok probably 2 years ago was this
Right.
guy that just started making portraits of
Right.
people out of Rubik's cubes.
Huh.
He's got one that is like super viral of like Dumbledore and Harry Potter
Yep.
and a lot of the like Harry Potter characters.
Okay.
He had several of those, and I've just seen a lot of his different
Right.
mosaics, and I fell in love. I was like,
Yeah.
this would be so cool,
That's
and
awesome.
I thought the barrier to entry was gonna be a lot more difficult than it was, but,
Yeah.
the tools online are free, and I'm actually creating a membership now, to give both therapists and artists the resources they need to use Rubik's Cube art.
That's awesome. So yeah, what do you see like long term, big picture goal with all this?
Yeah, so I want to right now I'm working with occupational therapists primarily, but I want to start expanding it out into like speech language pathology, play therapy,
Hmm.
special education, school-based occupational therapy. I mean, there's so many different facets and different ways that this therapy method could be used. But I think one of my like long-term goals is to get into some of these like conferences and conventions for different therapists.
Hmm.
So Texas has a TOTA, which is the Texas Occupational Therapist
Okay.
Association, and then AOTA is the American OT Association. And I would love to like partner with them and work with them to make it available to more therapists is the end goal.
That's awesome. Um, another thing I came across when I was looking at your website is your "Know That You Are Loved" movement. Do you want to talk about how that came about and what it is?
Yeah, for sure. So as a kid, I was bullied constantly
Hmm.
in middle school and high school because I was different. Obviously now I know that was because I was autistic,
Yep.
but at the time, the doctors had told me, "Oh, he's not autistic, he's just different." Or he's something genetically is not there. That was kind of the excuse they gave. That's what doctors do whenever they don't have an answer. They're like, okay, it's either genetic or we
Right.
don't know.
Yep.
So, uh, but thankfully now I know that's autism. But again, I was picked on a lot in high school, and I ended up having a lot of self-esteem issues and really struggled with my self-worth and who I was as a person, and had to work really, really hard to um, you know, overcome those hurdles. And I was at some of the lowest points of my life. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel cared for. And so I basically made it my intention to anybody I come across, I make it known that they are loved.
Hmm.
And the whole reason behind that is I'm actually a Christian. And I pull it from John, I think it's John 13:34. Jesus is talking to his disciples and he says, "Love others as I have loved you." And that really is where I draw that from. But, even if you're not a believer, somebody loves you,
Yeah.
whether it's family, friends, individual, somebody cares about you and you're important in this world. And so really I just want to spread that love to as many people as I can so that people don't have to feel like I did.
Yeah. That's great. I have "Love Thy Neighbor" tattooed on my right forearm, so
Okay,
similar to that.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many people don't understand that, it's
Yeah.
like love thy neighbor. It's that simple. So many people want to be like, well, I only can love you if you think the
Right.
same way that I do,
Yep.
or you have the same political views. And it's like, that's not what it says.
No.
It says love thy neighbor, period.
Yes.
Nothing after that.
Yeah, that's my thing too. It's like it. To me, it's really simple, and also like if we actually did love our neighbor like we're supposed to, like I feel there'd be way less problems in the world. I mean, there'd be so much less stuff. I would
I
think.
agree. I mean,
Yeah.
lately, we've seen all of these protests and all the things happening out in LA, and it's just like sometimes I wish we could just all get along.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I like to remember too is like I mean, just you and I or somebody even that doesn't look like me, different color skin, different beliefs. I mean, we're still if we sat down and had a cup of coffee, there's probably more stuff we agree on than we disagree on. So we can't let
Absolutely.
other people make us not like each other or you, this rhetoric and stuff. So yeah, we just need to. I mean, for me, I know like all the stuff that's been going on this year, just the days where I'm online less or looking at Facebook less and seeing all this stuff, I'm way more at ease, less anxious, and just got to remember that also.
Right. Well, and that's a big part of inclusion as
Yep.
well, is the fact that me and you might have different beliefs, we might have
Yep.
different political views, but at the end of the day, we're human and we deserve to be loved just as much as anybody else.
Absolutely. What is one tip you can share today to help the listeners be more inclusive? So just anything anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
Yeah, so usually what I would say to that is give people options in how they communicate, participate, and process information. I think one of the things for me was when I was in high school, there was a teacher that she really understood that there's different people that learn in different ways.
Hmm.
There's visual learners, there's auditory learners, there's people that learn in hands-on experiences. And I feel like if you give people the option and basically say, you don't have to do it my way. Let's
Right.
figure out what your way is together. That's going to go so far in helping this be a more inclusive world.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you want to share where the best place is for everybody to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm Kyle Cubes on all the major social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Feel free to follow me. And then if you want to get my guide in order to start trying Rubik's Cube art on your own or with your family, you can go to kylecubes.com/inclusive dad for that resource.
Awesome. Thank you. Made me my own link.
You got your
Sweet.
own little link on my website, friend.
There you go. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes, and when I share it out, I'll make sure that's on there. Ready?
Awesome.
Ready for the last question?
Yes, sir.
Do you like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
No, I don't. My wife does.
She does.
But she does. She gets spam all the time. I have a thing with meat. I think it's a texture thing.
Okay.
Um, I do some meat. I do like ham and turkey, but I'm more of a like fish and
Okay.
white meat type person.
Gotcha. The reason I asked that is if you didn't know, Austin, Minnesota is famous for the Spam and Spam Museum. That's where they make spam and where the Spam Museum's at. So if you ever want to visit it, or if your wife wants to visit, you got to come to Austin, Minnesota.
Okay, then I'm gonna come to Austin, Minnesota, and check out the Spam Museum.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, it's cool. I've been there. They have a lot of history stuff, a lot of interesting things. So it's pretty fun.
That's exciting.
And it brings the town's about 25 to 27,000 people, and it brings like 100,000 people into town a year to go to it. So it's pretty cool.
Hey, some towns they thrive on tourism. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
yeah, thanks for having me here. This has been fun.
To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.